Welcome to the channel NextGen Tech Prep. In today's video, we are diving deep into essential questions and comprehensive answers for the Microsoft Fabric Analytics Engineer Associate certification. Whether you're preparing for an exam or just looking to sharpen your knowledge, you're in the right place. If you find this content valuable, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's get started.
You have a Microsoft Power BI semantic model. You need to identify any surrogate key columns in the model that have the summarize by property set to a value other than to none. The solution must minimize effort. What should you use? The options are: Option A, Performance Analyzer in Power BI Desktop. Option B, Model Explorer in Microsoft Power BI Desktop. Option C, Model View in Microsoft Power BI Desktop. Option D, DAX Formatter in DAX Studio.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: surrogate key columns, summarize by property, minimize effort, semantic model.
The correct answer is option C, Model View in Microsoft Power BI Desktop.
Why is this correct? C. Model View in Power BI Desktop provides a comprehensive layout of tables and columns where you can quickly select columns and inspect or modify their properties, such as Summarize By, in the Properties pane with minimal effort. Why are the others incorrect? A. Performance Analyzer is designed to measure and diagnose the performance of report visuals and DAX queries, not to inspect or modify column metadata properties. B. Model Explorer displays the semantic model structure, such as measures, relationships, and perspectives, in a tree view, but it is not as efficient as Model View for quickly scanning and editing column properties. D. DAX Formatter is a tool used to format DAX code for readability and has no capability to inspect or modify column properties within a Power BI semantic model.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains a warehouse. You use a data flow to load a new dataset from one lake to the warehouse. You need to add a Power Query step to identify the maximum values for the numeric columns. Which function should you include in the step? The options are: Option A, Table. Range. Option B, Table. Max N. Option C, Table. Profile.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: Power Query step, identify the maximum values, numeric columns.
The correct answer is option C, Table. Profile.
Why is this correct? C. Table profile evaluates a table and returns a profile of its columns, including statistics such as minimum, maximum, average, and count for each column, which directly identifies the maximum values for numeric columns. Why are the others incorrect? A. Table range returns a specified number of rows from a table starting at a given offset, which does not calculate or provide column-level statistics like maximum values. B. Table.maxN returns the largest row or rows from a table based on a specified condition, rather than profiling and returning the maximum value for each individual numeric column.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains a workspace named Workspace 1 and a user named User 1. Workspace 1 contains a warehouse named DW1. You share DW1 with User 1 and assign User 1 the default permissions for DW1. What can User 1 do? The options are: Option A, read data from the tables in DW1. Option B, build reports by using the default dataset. Option C, read the underlying Parquet files from OneLake. Option D, connect to DW1 via the TDS, Tabular Data Stream, endpoint.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: Fabric Warehouse Sharing, Default Permissions, Read Permission, Default Semantic Model, OneLake Parquet files.
The correct answer is option A, read data from the tables in DW1.
Why is this correct? A. Sharing a warehouse with default permissions grants the read permission, which allows the user to query and read data from the tables and views in the warehouse. Why are the others incorrect? D. Building reports using the default semantic model requires the build permission, which is not granted by default when sharing a warehouse. C. Reading the underlying Parquet files directly from OneLake requires the read all, Spark, permission, which is not assigned by default. D. While the SQL endpoint uses TDS, the default read permission specifically authorizes reading the table data, whereas direct external TDS connection is a connectivity method that may be restricted by tenant-level settings.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains two workspaces named Workspace 1 and Workspace 2. Workspace 1 is used as the development environment. Workspace 2 is used as the production environment. Each environment uses a different storage account. Workspace 1 contains a Dataflow Gen 2 named Dataflow 1. The data source of Dataflow 1 is a CSV file in blob storage. You plan to implement a deployment pipeline to deploy items from Workspace 1 to Workspace 2. You need to ensure that the data source references the correct location in the production environment. What should you do? The options are: Option A, create a data source rule only. Option B, create a parameter rule only. Option C, create a data source rule and a parameter rule. Option D, after implementing the deployment pipeline, manually change the data source.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: Dataflow Gen 2, deployment pipeline, different storage account, data source references.
The correct answer is option C, create a data source rule and a parameter rule.
Why is this correct? C. To successfully redirect Dataflow Gen 2 to a different storage account during deployment, you must use a data source rule to change the connection and a parameter rule to update the specific file or folder path parameters used in the queries. Why are the others incorrect? A. A data source rule alone only changes the connection details but cannot update query-specific parameters, such as file paths, which are required for the data flow to function correctly in the new environment. B. A parameter rule alone can update query parameters but cannot change the underlying connection or storage account definition, which requires a data source rule. D. Manually updating the data source after deployment is inefficient, error-prone, and violates the automation benefits of using deployment pipelines.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains 30 CSV files in OneLake. The files are updated daily. You create a Microsoft Power BI semantic model named Model 1 that uses the CSV files as a data source. You configure incremental refresh for Model 1 and publish the model to an F64 capacity in the Fabric tenant. When you initiate a refresh of Model 1, the refresh fails after running out of resources. What is a possible cause of the failure? The options are: Option A, XMLA endpoint is set to read only. Option B, query folding is occurring. Option C, the data type of the column used to partition the data has changed. Option D, only refresh complete days is selected. Option E, query folding is not occurring.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: incremental refresh, CSV files in OneLake, fails after running out of resources, query folding.
The correct answer is option E, query folding is not occurring.
Why is this correct? E. Without query folding, the entire dataset from the CSV files must be loaded into memory for filtering, causing the refresh to exceed capacity resource limits. Why are the others incorrect? A. If the XMLA endpoint is set to read only, the refresh would fail immediately with a permissions error, not due to running out of resources. B. Query folding reduces resource usage by pushing data filtering to the source, which would prevent resource exhaustion rather than causing it. C. A change in the partition column's data type would cause a schema mismatch or type conversion error, not a resource exhaustion failure. D. Selecting only refresh complete days merely restricts the refresh window and does not cause excessive resource consumption that leads to failure.
You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a lakehouse named Lakehouse 1 and a user named User 1. You need to ensure that user 1 can read all the data in Lakehouse 1. The solution must follow the principle of least privilege. Which two actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. The options are: Option A, assign the contributor role to user 1. Option B, select Read All Apache Spark. Option C, assign the viewer role to user 1. Option D, share Lakehouse 1 by using item permissions. Option E, assign the member role to user 1.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: read all the data in Lakehouse 1, principle of least privilege, fabric workspace, item permissions.
The correct answers are Option B, select Read All Apache Spark, and Option D, share Lakehouse 1 by using item permissions.
Why is this correct? B. Selecting Read All Apache Spark grants the user read access to the underlying OneLake data files using Spark, which is required to read all Lakehouse data. D. Sharing Lakehouse 1 using item permissions grants access only to the specific Lakehouse, adhering to the principle of least privilege instead of granting workspace-level roles. Why are the others incorrect? A. The contributor role grants workspace-level write permissions to all items, which violates the principle of least privilege. C. The viewer role grants read access to all items in the workspace, which is broader than necessary since only Lakehouse 1 access is required. E. The member role grants workspace-level management and edit permissions, which far exceeds the required read-only access for a single Lakehouse.
You have a Microsoft Power BI semantic model that contains a single table named Orders. Orders contains the following columns: product name, order date, quantity. You have a Power BI report that contains a page named Inventory. Inventory contains a slicer for the product name column and a clustered column chart that shows quantity by order date. You need to ensure that users can select whether to display quantity by product name or quantity by order date in the chart. The solution must minimize development effort. What should you create? The options are: Option A, a measure. Option B, a dynamic format string. Option C, a field parameter. Option D, a calculation group.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: select whether to display quantity by product name or quantity by order date, minimize development effort, change the chart axis dynamically.
The correct answer is Option C, a field parameter.
Why is this correct? C. Field parameters allow users to dynamically change the columns or measures used as axes or legends in a visual. Creating a field parameter containing product name and order date lets users toggle the chart's axis via a slicer with minimal configuration. Why are the others incorrect? A. A measure calculates numeric values and cannot be used to dynamically swap the dimension columns on a chart's axis. B. A dynamic format string changes the display format of a measure's output based on DAX expressions, not the fields displayed on a chart axis. D. Calculation groups allow for reusable calculation logic, like time intelligence, across measures, but they cannot dynamically change the active dimension column on a visual's axis.
You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1. You have a GitHub repository named Repo 1. You need to connect Workspace 1 to the main branch of Repo 1. Which information should you provide? The options are: Option A, a shared access signature, SAS, token and the branch name of Repo 1. Option B, a personal access token, PAT, and the URL of Repo 1. Option C, an access key and the branch name of Repo 1. Option D, an access key and the URL of Repo 1.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: Fabric Workspace, GitHub repository, Connect Workspace 1.
The correct answer is Option B, a personal access token, PAT, and the URL of Repo 1.
Why is this correct? B. Connecting a Microsoft Fabric workspace to GitHub requires a personal access token, PAT, for authentication and the repository URL to locate the repository. Why are the others incorrect? A. Shared access signature, SASS, tokens are used for Azure storage, not GitHub authentication, and the repository URL is required to establish the connection. C. Access keys are used for Azure resources, not GitHub, and the repository URL is needed to identify the repository. D. Access keys are used for Azure services rather than GitHub, which requires a personal access token, PAT, for secure access.
You have an Azure SQL database named DB1 and a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1. Workspace 1 contains a lakehouse named LH1 and a Dataflow Gen 2 named Dataflow 1. Dataflow 1 includes a query named Query1 that loads data from DB1, applies transformations to the data, and then filters the data. You discover that Query1 loads all the data before applying the transformations. You need to ensure that Query1 uses query folding. What should you do? The options are: Option A, remove unused columns from Query1. Option B, enable incremental refresh for Query1. Option C, replace DB1 with a Microsoft SQL Server database. Option D, move the filter steps before the transformation steps in Query1.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: query folding, loads all the data before applying the transformations, Dataflow Gen 2, Azure SQL Database.
The correct answer is option D, move the filter steps before the transformation steps in Query1.
Why is this correct? D. Moving filter steps before non-foldable transformations ensures that the filtering is folded and executed on the source database, preventing the retrieval of unnecessary data before transformations occur. Why are the others incorrect? A. Removing unused columns reduces data volume but does not fix the query folding blockage caused by the order of transformations. B. Incremental refresh requires query folding to be configured properly first, enabling it does not fix the step order causing the folding issue. C. Azure SQL Database natively supports query folding, so replacing it with SQL Server will not resolve step ordering issues within the query.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains a semantic model named Model 1. Model 1 contains a fact table named Fact Sales. Fact Sales has a relationship to a dimension table named DimDate on a column named OrderDate. To Fact Sales, you add a second relationship between Fact Sales and DimDate based on a column named ShipDate. You need to filter by using ShipDate in a new report. The solution must not affect the function of existing reports. Which two actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. The options are: Option A, enable the ShipDate relationship. Option B, use a relatable DAX function. Option C, use a cross-filter DAX function. Option D, use a user relationship DAX function. Option E, disable the ShipDate relationship between the tables.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: second relationship, not affect the function of existing reports, filter by using ShipDate, USR-ILATIONSHIP.
Correct answers are option D, use a user relationship DAX function. And option E, disable the ShipDate relationship between the tables.
Why is this correct? D. USR-ILATIONSHIP enables the inactive ShipDate relationship to be used in specific measures for the new report without affecting other calculations. E. Disabling, making inactive, the ShipDate relationship ensures the existing active OrderDate relationship remains unaffected, preserving the functionality of existing reports. Why are the others incorrect? A. Enabling the ShipDate relationship would make it active, which is not allowed if another relationship is active, or would change the default relationship, breaking existing reports. B. Relatable evaluates a table expression in a context modified by given filters, but does not activate an inactive relationship between tables. C. Cross-filter is used to modify cross-filtering behavior, direction, between tables, not to activate an inactive relationship for role-playing dimensions.
You have a Fabric tenant. You need to create a semantic model that delivers fast report rendering, minimizes query latency, and maximizes flexibility for DAX calculations. Which storage mode should you select? The options are Option A, Import. Option B, Direct Lake. Option C, Composite Mode. Option D, Direct Query.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: fast report rendering, minimizes query latency, maximizes flexibility for DAX calculations, semantic model.
The correct answer is option A, import.
Why is this correct? A. Import mode loads all data into memory, delivering the fastest report rendering and lowest query latency. It supports the complete set of DAX functions and features without any limitations or fallback behaviors, thereby maximizing DAX flexibility. Why are the others incorrect? B. Direct Lake mode can fall back to direct query mode when encountering complex DAX calculations or specific model features, which increases query latency and restricts DAX flexibility. C. Composite mode combines import and direct query, which can introduce query latency when querying the direct query tables and does not offer the consistent high performance of pure import mode. D. Direct query queries the data source in real time, leading to high query latency and slower report rendering, while also severely limiting the use of complex DAX calculations.
You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 and a user named User 1. You need to ensure that User 1 can perform the following tasks in Workspace 1: create dashboards, publish semantic models, create and publish reports. The solution must follow the principle of least privilege. Which workspace role should you assign to User 1? The options are Option A, Contributor. Option B, Member. Option C, Viewer. Option D, Admin.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: create dashboards, publish semantic models, create and publish reports, least privilege, workspace role.
The correct answer is option A, contributor.
Why is this correct? A. The contributor role is the lowest privileged role in a Fabric workspace that allows users to create, edit, and delete content, including creating dashboards, publishing semantic models, and creating and publishing reports. Why are the others incorrect? B. The member role has additional administrative permissions, such as sharing items, modifying workspace members, and publishing apps, which violates the principle of least privilege. C. The viewer role only allows users to view and interact with content, and does not permit creating dashboards, publishing semantic models, or creating and publishing reports. D. The admin role has full control over the workspace, including managing users and deleting the workspace, which far exceeds the required permissions and violates the principle of least privilege.
You are designing a Fabric semantic model named Model 1 for a financial analytics workspace. Model 1 includes a DAX measure named Measure 1 that returns total sales. You have a table named Currency that contains a column named Format. The Format column defines currency formatting strings for each record as follows: $#, hashtag 0.00, Euro hashtag 0.00, or Yen hashtag 0.00. You have a report that uses the currency column to identify which symbol and format string to display. In the report, Measure 1 must appear with 2 decimal places and the appropriate currency symbol based on the selected value in the currency column. You create the following DAX formula. Format equals selected value, currency, format. You need to ensure that measure appears correctly in visuals. The solution must minimize logic duplication. What should you do? The options are: Option A, create a dynamic format string for Measure 1 that references the format measure. Option B, for Model 1, set the data category of Measure 1 to country/region. Option C, for Model 1, set the format type of Measure 1 to currency. Option D, copy the DAX expression from the format column and paste the expression into the format string expression of Measure 1.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, dynamic format string, minimize logic duplication, selected value, currency formatting strings.
The correct answer is option A. Create a dynamic format string for measure 1 that references the format measure.
Why is this correct? A. Creating a dynamic format string for measure 1 that references the existing format measure allows the formatting to dynamically update based on the user's selection while avoiding duplicating the formatting logic. Why are the others incorrect? B. Setting the data category to country/region does not apply currency formatting to a measure, it is used for geographic mapping. C. Setting the format type to a static currency format does not allow for dynamic switching of currency symbols based on user selection. D. Copying the DAX expression directly into the format string expression of measure 1 duplicates the logic, which violates the requirement to minimize logic duplication.
You have a fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains the following items: a warehouse named Warehouse 1, a semantic model named Model 1, an interactive report named Report 1. You need to allow a user named User 1 to access a single table in Warehouse 1. The solution must follow the principle of least privilege. What should you do first? The options are: Option A, assign the viewer role to User 1 for Workspace 1. Option B, share Warehouse 1 with User 1. Option C, assign object-level permissions to User 1 for Warehouse 1. Option D, assign the DB_DataReader role to User 1 for Warehouse 1.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, single table in Warehouse 1, principle of least privilege.
The correct answer is option C. Assign object-level permissions to User 1 for Warehouse 1.
Why is this correct? C. Assigning object-level permissions using SQL granular access control, such as grant select, allows you to restrict the user's access to only the specified table, satisfying the principle of least privilege. Why are the others incorrect? A. Assigning the viewer role at the workspace level grants read access to all items in the workspace, which violates the principle of least privilege. B. Sharing the warehouse grants the user read permission on the entire warehouse, exposing all tables and data instead of just the single required table. D. Assigning the DB_DataReader role grants read access to all tables and views within the database, which exceeds the required single table access.
You have a fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a semantic model and a report named Report 1. Workspace 1 is connected to a Git repository named Git1. You have a deployment pipeline that contains 3 stages named Development, Test, and Production. You need to publish Report 1 to the production stage. What should you do? The options are: Option A, run a Git commit. Option B, run a full deployment. Option C, sync Workspace 1 with Git1. Option D, run a backward deployment.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, fabric workspace, Git repository, deployment pipeline, publish to production stage, sync Workspace 1.
The correct answer is option C. Sync Workspace 1 with Git1.
Why is this correct? C. Syncing Workspace 1 with Git1 updates the workspace with the latest changes from the Git repository, ensuring the workspace content is current and ready to be deployed through the pipeline stages to the production stage. Why are the others incorrect? A. Running a Git commit saves changes from the workspace to the Git repository, but it does not deploy or publish the report to the production stage of the pipeline. B. Running a full deployment is used to deploy content between pipeline stages, but it does not resolve the sync status between the workspace and the Git repository first. D. Backward deployment copies content from a downstream stage, like production, to an upstream stage, like development, which is the opposite of publishing to production.